Hello, everybody. I'm Zenith and welcome back to Diving Into DuckTales, where Kat Macberrie, Doug Macberrie, and myself discuss each individual episode of the 2017 DuckTales series. But before we begin, I do want to make a note of something, since this is technically the first episode that we've recorded since something interesting happened to me. I am officially now a voice actor. I have been voice acting in the background for quite a bit now, practicing and whatnot, and auditioning various different things. But now, as of today, I am officially a voice actor. One of my auditions got approved and passed on, so I am going to be voicing Seto Kaiba in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Not a Yu-Gi-Oh! Show, in a YouTube show. So I'm excited. I can't wait to see how that turns out. But I am voicing Seto Kaiba, and so I get to tell people to screw the rules. I got money. But anyway, that's enough about me. So once again, I am here with my co-hosts Kat Macberrie and Doug Macberrie. So we're going to talk about the latest DuckTales episode. Today we're talking about the episode Who Is Gizmo Duck? And this is a very interesting one. We've seen Gizmo Duck on the show before. We had quite a few episodes that lead up to Fenton becoming Gizmo Duck, and today we get an interesting development. So Kat, why don't you give us a brief summary about what is going on in this episode?
Sure thing. So, as we all know, Fenton has now become Gizmo Duck. However, he hasn't exactly come into the public eye yet. So, this episode deals with Fenton, first of all, foiling his first bank heist, because the Beagle Boys, try to rob a bank wearing masks over their masks for some reason. And he activates the suit, and unfortunately, because it's still in the prototype stage, the core kind of malfunctions. So the episode is spent with Fenton trying to figure out the kinks and trying to figure out a way to get around it. Meanwhile, Mark Beeks has been hard at work on this little project that he intends to use in order to get Gizmo Duck to join Waddle. And eventually the two meet up, and Mark Beeks offers him the chance to become the hero that everyone thinks Gizmo Duck is. Meanwhile, at the same time, he's kind of torn between his loyalty to Gyro, who unfortunately still doesn't see the full heroic potentials of Gizmo Duck. And from there, we see Fenton learn what it truly means to be a hero. The hero known as Gizmo Duck!
And who am I? I am Gizmo Duck! This is an interesting episode. I think it's another really, really good one with a lot of interesting things going on. But I think what works initially is that it really focuses on Fenton and his relation to Gizmo Duck, because he really wants to help people. The big crux of the episode is that he doesn't want to give the Gizmo Duck armor to Gyro, because Gyro doesn't even care about it. He doesn't really want to help people. He just wants to basically focus on his invention, and he doesn't see the potential that Gizmo Duck has to help people. And on the other hand, we have Mark Beeks, who initially represents the idea that he says, I'm going to help people around the world. Waddle is going to help people. And instead, he uses his invention to charge people for the service of Gizmo Duck. And it very much shows that Fenton is out there simply because he wants to help the most people possible. And he is bumbling, you can definitely see that, but he really just wants to go out in the world and make the world a better place. And the biggest the biggest parallel I can make here is that it feels a little bit about the idea that Captain America brings up in Civil War about the question of choice versus people telling you who you can and cannot save. He wants to go out and save everyone regardless, whereas, both of these people who are technically hiring him want to choose what he does with the suit until eventually it becomes his own responsibility, and that's the idea all along. And it's very much a good introspective episode for Fenton, and I really like that idea that Huey poses through the episode. Doug, what are your thoughts upon the dilemma that Fenton has throughout the episode?
Yeah, I think that's quite a dilemma there, especially because it's like, if anybody were smart enough, they could probably exploit a loophole in that, if they saw somebody in trouble, they could tell Gizmo Duck or Waddle Duck to save them. But yeah, it's like, it basically became like, yeah, he really kind of sold out in that. Not his own fault, but he didn't know what he was agreeing to. So yeah, it stinks that he can't just be a hero. He has to basically be a puppet for Waddle.
And Kat, what do you think of the concept of Fenton kind of really coming into his own and becoming his own superhero in this episode?
Well, I'm glad it finally happened. I mean, granted, he already showed his heroics in his intro episode, but I'm glad in this case he's become more of a public figure and that people are realizing, his true potential and everything. Because, of course, this all comes about because Gyro is an asshole. Because, he designs the suit as sort of like guard armor, but he doesn't really intend to use it that way. It's kind of confusing, but, the fact that he gets angry that Fenton actually wants to help people is, really telling. Because, when Huey's, revealing that he used the armor to, foil a bank robbery, he's like, what? My invention helps people? What the fuck?
Yeah, he's just like, I created this for profit, even though, he comes up with another idea in the episode called Haywire, glow-in-the-dark hay, and every single one of his ideas is pretty much, I'm going to make a profit off of it.
Pretty much. On the one hand, that's, good business sense. You need something that you can mass market to people that's, user-friendly and everything, and you can make a lot of money. But at the same time, you gotta sort of know, you gotta throw some, moral compass in there and say, well, how could I help people, too? And, of course, we all know Gyro is not that type of person, at least not in this continuity. So, I mean, I don't blame Fenton for, defecting over to Waddle, because, Mark Bates made a legit offer. He's like, hey, I noticed you have all the ability to save people. I can help you with that, legitly, and that way anybody who needs help can summon you. And while Gyro is just like, no, that's not what my invention was for. If you're fired, I'm going to melt down the armor. Dude, come on. So
it's like, even if you don't want to help people, there are so many useful things and gadgets inside the armor that you could patent on their own, like the ballpoint pointer or something like that. You could patent that.
The infinite pie thrower.
The infinite pie thrower. There's a point in the episode where he's just going through the amount of gadgets he can use. And it's very much reminiscent of Spider-Man Homecoming, where he's trying to figure out what the suit can do. And he goes through 5 or 6 or 7 different types of pies that the suit just randomly knows how to throw. And I'm like, if you had the ability to make pies on command, just a robot that just make pies, that would have been profitable on its own.
Yeah, where does he get the milk and eggs? Answer, Dalek.
Cure for world hunger? Nah. It's just gonna throw pies at people.
This is a robot that throws pies in people's faces. I created it, for those movies where you just really need a pie. It's the invention that keeps on giving.
I'm like, when is the last time that anyone has ever done a pie in the face gag since this?
I'm sure in like some lesser cartoons somewhere.
Somewhere along the line, but I miss the old pie in the face gag. And the thing is, no one gets actually hit in the face by any of these pies. They lampshade that. They have one point pies falling from the ceiling, and it gets caught by the hand before it hits someone. But no one actually gets hit in the face with a pie, and so
I think Fenton hits himself with a pie in the beginning, but that's about it.
Yeah, pretty much. So it kind of lampshades that, but again, there's so many useful things that the Gizmo Duck armor can do. Just Gyro is kind of short-sighted in that fact, and I know we've established that Gyro has a bit of gear loose, has a few gears loose, if you know what I mean. But it's like he has all these ideas that he wants to make a profit off, but he doesn't think of how to market them or the ideas that are right in front of his face. Again, the pies, the ballpoint pointer, the thing that can, the extendo abs, on their own, these are things that could possibly turn a profit, but he just has to combine them together. And while that's good in the long run, I'm stuck wondering how he doesn't have any sort of assistant that's there to tell him no. And granted, yes, Fenton is that, but I'm saying before this point.
Well, unfortunately, given that he's the real antisocial type and would looks down on everyone in general, I doubt he would listen to them, even if they were even if their main purpose was just to tell him to not to do shit. Because honestly, it took Scrooge threatening to cut his budget in order for him to actually rein himself back in terms of the inventions that he was coming up with. So.
And they do follow back on that in this episode where the entire reason why he wants to pull the plug on the project was because, he doesn't want his funding cut. So he doesn't want... For some reason, he doesn't want Scrooge thinking that his invention foiled a robbery. And granted, yeah, it got bad press. But to be fair, the press is kind of pretty horrible in this episode, too.
Well, he did inadvertently cause property damage, not to mention he set all the money on fire.
All the money is on fire! There are some really good gags in this episode, and that was one of it. He starts, his suit goes haywire, and it's just core overloading. Would you like to vent excess energy? He's like, yes, do that. And he's like, self-destruct initiated. No, don't do that.
Why is that the only way to vent energy? Can't he have an actual vent that emits all of the energy somewhere, or he uses a dispensary or something? Why is self-destruct the only possible way of getting rid of the energy?
Because Gyro.
True.
And why are you wording it like that? Because it says vent excess energy. You would, when you say self-destruct, or then when he's testing out all the different inventions that the suit has, he's just okay, let's go one by one down the list, and he gets interrupted, and he says, "Isn't that overkill?" And the overkill triggers a rocket from the chest, and I'm like, why would you have it respond to the word overkill?
Again, Gyro.
Spider-Man suit entering kill mode.
No, stop. No. What they needed Karen to step in. They needed the suit to behave as Karen, because otherwise it would just end up in disaster.
True, but I mean, the whole message of the episode was that Fenton himself was Gizmoduck. It wasn't the suit. So for him to have an AI controlling the suit would take away from that.
That is true. The whole message, like you said, is that Huey keeps telling him that he does not need he doesn't need anything else to regulate the excess energy. He just needs to take out the processor and use his brain as the processor, which is a very good moral message. The problem that I have with it, which is it's probably part of the joke, it's probably part of the joke, but the way they do this is by ripping out the processor and hooking the suit up to his brain directly. And for a second there, he pretty much goes like, he pretty much feels like he's gone brain dead for like a few seconds there. And I'm just like, yeah, you're hooking a suit up to his brain. Shouldn't you just make another component to like receive the wireless signal from his brain or something? Because he might be losing a few brain cells.
Well, again, remember, it's a prototype. I assume Gyro fixed that in the second version of the suit.
Yeah. But that also raises another thing that I have. When at the end of the episode, he takes the core processor, basically the light bulb tech that's powering the suit, which, god damn it, Gyro, you why is it always a light bulb with you? But anyway, the light bulb explodes while he's taking it away, and he winds up in the hospital, and they're like, they tell him to try out the suit while he's in a cast, and he's like blathering blatherskites, and the suit forms around him again, but it clearly is like destroying the casts and reopening all his broken bones and wounds. So like that's not the best option, guys. Like, you could have just said it works, we'll try it later.
Well, then we wouldn't have gotten that funny scene of him breaking himself again.
Yeah, it is admittedly very funny, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of these jokes really, really work. I stopped to think about that one portion of the episode. I'm like, yeah, he just broke his bones all over again. That's gonna be another month in the hospital.
Well, apparently the suit can move even without him moving his limbs, which I assumed already, considering the suit is twice his size. So I don't think it takes that much. He probably could operate it even with his like broken bones.
Yeah, he probably can. I mean, they show him at the end of the episode, pretty much flying around through the air using the new processor. Still kind of fumbling around with it, but in a much better state of control than he was before. Although he does fire another missile, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Stop destroying shit, Fenton. Come on.
It reminds me of something Tara said in one of the new episodes of Radio Dead Air. You don't get a medal for stopping the problem if you caused it. That's why
True.
Tony Stark is not a hero.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the crux of the episode. It's very much an episode about Fenton wanting to help people and wanting to become the hero that he always knew he could be. But it really takes a lot of roundabout things happening to allow him to become a hero. So before we get into the villain and like kind of the secondary aspect of the episode, what do you think of this, Mr. Doug?
Well, I mean, again, it's going to be one of those things where you harken back to the 87 DuckTales. It's like, I actually really like the fact that Fenton was, testing the powers, trying to figure out how everything worked before, trying to go out again on patrol or whatever. Whereas, like, the other, the 87 version, Fenton just kind of went with the flow. Like he had a book, but he was so inept that he wound up dropping it, off where the Beagle Boys were, and they took advantage of that. So, I mean, I must stress just how much I like this version of Fenton and his mother. His mother is so much better in this, too. I'll let Kat talk a little bit about that, I guess, at some point. But, yeah, all in all, the Caballeras are much improved.
Kat, what are your thoughts on Fenton and his journey throughout this episode?
I love it a lot. Like I said, this version of Fenton is so endearing, and I just love how Lin-Manuel Miranda voices him. Like, he kind of talks in a fast, sort of nervous way, but he's still smart. He's still determined, and you can see that he's definitely hero material. Because even though he does at the beginning try to hide during the bank robbery, once he's in action, he acts without a second thought. Because his duty is to, catch the bad guys, save everybody, and do what he can just, to be a hero and to keep Duckburg safe. And I do even when he's stripped of his suit later on, he still tries to save everybody, even at even almost killing himself in the process. So yeah, I really do enjoy this. I enjoyed this episode much better than the, what was it, 4 or 5 part episode of the original. Yeah, the 5-part episode of the original, which barely focused on him outside of the first 2 episodes. So yeah, much improved.
Didn't you say there was aliens in that episode too?
Oh god, the last
the
last episode of the 5-parter, they just randomly threw aliens in there. And granted, Fenton does get a chance to shine, because Scrooge finds out who he really is, and even though he's deprived of his suit, he still uses his wits to outwit the aliens and gets them to escape. So he did have that going for him at least, but even so, that 5-parter was such a drag. It was there was no reason it had to be that long. And it was so unfocused too. They could have easily cut it down to 2, maybe 3 episodes at the most. So
I'm sorry. I know I should not be as surprised as I am right now, but why do they keep adding aliens into DuckTales?
I mean, considering, they also have time travel, mystical beasts, was it underworld, secret underworlds, pretty much any sort of fantasy, sci-fi technology type thing you can imagine is part of the DuckTales universe. So aliens do kind of make sense, but the problem is a lot of the alien-based episodes I've seen so far really don't gel that well with the plot. It's more this character is having a dilemma, and then all of a sudden they throw in aliens. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's probably aliens behind this plot. It may look like a simple bank robbery, but I'm telling you, when the Beagle Boys walked into this episode, I said to myself, aliens?
Oh, speaking of when the Beagle Boys enter into the bank, you notice they're wearing I guess they're wearing Scrooge McDuck or just plain duck masks, but one of them is wearing a Mighty Ducks mask.
Yes. and he's the one who flips it up and says, "Why are we wearing masks over our masks?"
The great thing is that actually references 2 things. Actually 3 things. That references the legit hockey team, the Ducks. That references the movies, the Mighty Duck trilogy, and it also references the Mighty Ducks TV show, which was also on Disney Afternoon. So it was a nice little tidbit right there.
So the big portion of the episode is obviously the stuff with Fenton. The other half is really the stuff with Mark, Beaks, and Waddle, and I think I have to applaud this episode on 2 different things. First of all, it actually gives Mark Beaks menace and a really good motivation. And like they really focus on Mark Beeks, and they try to make him a lot more of a threat than he has been. And I think for the most part they do succeed, because like for a lot of this episode, I was just like, oh, okay, like he's threatening. They give him some really good lighting, and they give him some really good menacing moments, and I'm just like, oh, like they really step up to the plate, but they don't actually rob him of his buffoonery, and I think that's a good thing. One of the major thing that happens with Mark Beeks in the episode is they give him this transformation sequence. and we all knew we had to talk about this because like beforehand he has this big menacing speech, and he talks about how, oh well, now it's my turn. I'm going to take over, and I will be Gizmo Duck. And he has this really great menacing thing, but then all of a sudden they cut to a Sailor Moon style transformation sequence. He turns into a magical girl. He's now the magical duck. He's not Waddle Duck anymore. He is Maho Shoujo, magical girl, Waddle Duck, and I loved every second of that because
kawaii.
Kawaii. It just when it comes to this, it's a lot like Glomgold, where you have this character, and yes, you do want to give them a sufficient amount of menace, but you also want to keep in mind that they're bumbling characters. They're not fully competent. They are to a certain extent, but you really want to rein them in. And they always do a good job with Glomgold. I think this episode does a good job of showing both sides of Mark Beeks, of that menace, but also just the bumbling nature of the character. Anyway, Kat, what do you think of this?
I will agree that, yes, this episode finally achieved the goal of making Mark Beeks a legit threat. Because, again, up to this point, he's been more of an annoyance than anything. He hasn't really menaced, like, Scrooge or anybody else all that much. Like, we know that he's a liar. We know that he's lazy. We know that he's self-centered and all about, upping his online status and everything. But it's not until this episode that we realize that, yeah, he's legitimately a bad guy. Like, not only does he manipulate Fenton into working for him and then basically holds him hostage, like, extorts him, for his own profit, but he actually, like, states outright he does not care whether people live or die, so long as he gets, his fame and his money. So, yeah, I do like that. I love how the lighting changes whenever he gets into, like, evil mode, and even though he does monologue a bit, like, you do get the chills a bit, because you know that what he's gonna do will cost lives. But at the same time, he still has that levity to him that makes it so that, oh yeah, well, he's still, a goofball and everything, and he's still all about pomp and circumstance and being as flashy as he possibly fucking can. So, yeah, I really do like how they fleshed that out in this, and again, made him a villain, because that is what he's supposed to be, a villain. Like, being just a minor annoyance is fine in some regards, but I am glad that he's been bumped up to full-on villain now. So, yeah, I'm really happy about that. I mean, granted, it's not good to root for somebody becoming a full-on villain, but at the same time, if they're fun and enjoyable and they're, have the good qualities you want to see in an entertaining villain, then why the hell not?
Doug, do you have anything to add to this?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, definitely I my sentiments with Kat exactly. It's like, yeah, now we actually have a reason to really consider him a villain. I sometimes, like, aside from McMystery at McDuck McManor, I don't think he's ever had, like, an interaction with Louie, but I want to see, like, the two of them square off at some point because they're so alike. Another thing I do want to note is that all his plotting and planning, I would have expected that they'd go the route where he kind of sets a trap for Gizmo Duck to get him into Waddle, but actually it's like he just kind of waits for, the opportunity, and then of course opportunity knocks and he takes advantage of the situation. So I'm like, wow, way to, not go with the cliche. I'm rather proud of that. And it's also funny because it's like, you see just how also he goes through all these helicopters. It's like, so he gets when Gizmo Duck brings him to the roof of Waddle, he's like, "Hey, can I get another helicopter up here?" And it's like, "What do you mean stairs?" And he gets a text. It's like, "Did you break another helicopter?"
What I love is when he gets taken out of the helicopter, the first thing is he's listening to dubstep the entire time. He's not even paying attention. He doesn't even notice that it's Gizmo Duck that is pulling him out of the helicopter. Then he takes a second. He realizes it. He starts to cry. He legitimately starts to cry. He's like, "Oh, my time has finally come." And he rides on Gizmo Duck's back. Like Free fucking Willy.
Oh no, it's more like the never-ending story, in my opinion.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Hey there, buddy!
Yeah!
Yeah!
Going down!
Yeah!
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 Um,
And then he takes that selfie afterwards, and he's like, "This guy showed me a whole new world." It's like, I saw what you did there.
Disney meta humor.
I really like how this episode really does a good job of, like, it's not predictable, but it goes against a lot of major conventions that you would think the episode would go with. And obviously, we knew from the start that Mark Beeks was going to be the villain, and we kind of knew, based on the device, like, what he was going to do with it. But I think it does a good job of just, doing just enough to where we're not, groaning at it, rehashing cliches of the time. And very much, I was just like, okay, so he's holding this armor hostage with his new Waddle Tech, I want to say, like, magnet symbol or whatever. And, that was kind of obvious from the beginning, but then he takes hold of the armor and the Chekhov's gun that they set up at the beginning of, the armor being not very easy to control and being easy to overload. Like, they set things up, they pay it off well, but they play with expectations just enough to the point where I'm like, okay, they do a good job here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only complaint about it, is that, you kind of know what's coming, because I knew once Mark Beeks made that offer that he was going to turn around and then, like, capture the armor and use it for his own nefarious plots. So, I mean, although I am, like, wondering, like, because they show Mark Beeks actually made the device himself, so it's like, he knows how to make tech, so why the hell doesn't he do this for his company? Like, I get he's all about, doing things the easy way and, basically hyping things up, but it's like, he can make legit tech, so why does he need to do all the pomp and circumstance and everything of pretending to make a product when he can actually make it?
He's probably, like, stealing ideas from everybody else. I mean, that's essentially what happened with the buddy system.
Yeah, but he clearly knows how to use that tech and how to create that tech, so... I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, I agree with Kat that he's smart enough to build things, and he's a billionaire CEO of a company. Why does he need to steal Gizmo Duck? I mean, granted, yeah, it's an opportunity that was presented to him, and he feels snubbed, but to a certain extent, like, it's one of those things where, like, these super mad scientists, they want to create a machine that can take over the world, and I'm just like, you have the ability and money to create an empire and take over the world legitimately. Why are you trying to do it through illegal means?
Well, think of it like Apple because it's like they keep releasing these products, like saying that, oh, we invented this stuff, we totally invented it, even though it had previously been like Samsung or LG or something that had released basically the same product. So it's like it's kind of the same thing, he's stealing something and taking credit for it. He might improve upon it, but I think for the most part it's just like he's basically just stealing other people's ideas and making them his own.
I do like the bit of continuity they keep in the way that his idea of taking over as Gizmo Duck kind of crashes down around him, in that once again he ignores the downfall of somebody else's invention and it backfires on him. Because that's what happened in the buddy system. Like he took all the blueprints for bulb tech and made it into the buddy system, which did work, but then he ignored its flaws and the things that causes it to basically turn evil, I guess. And again, ended up putting in the position where it did turn evil. And it was the same thing with this case. He took over the Gizmo suit, even though Fenton warned him that multiple actions would cause the core processor to overheat, and he goes and does it anyway. So I do like that they kept that going, that once again he's all for getting something done in like the flashiest way possible without taking in the negative repercussions of it.
Curses, I foiled myself again. Screw your rules, I have money. I'm going to destroy my own inventions by my own hubris. It's part of my character.
He may have failed even more spectacularly than Glomgold, and that's saying something.
Speaking of Glomgold, I love what they do with his cameo in the episode. so there's an entire montage in the episode where Gizmo Duck is now Waddle Duck, and he's forced to go out and help people. But it's not just, it's not saving people like he wants to do. It's pretty much like, oh, my cat got caught in a tree, or I need help with relationship issues. And they have this really awesome montage with this Waddle Duck like theme song, and I really love like the song itself is hilarious. It's kind of a dubstep like montage song.
It kind of reminds me of the South Park song, we're gonna need a montage.
I think there's also a bit of I Need a Hero in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it was based off of. It's pretty much the same tune.
In one of the segments, though, during the montage, Glomgold hires him to do a painting of him, and I'm pretty sure it's a nude.
Ew.
Paint me like one of your French girls.
Ew. Oh,
Classic
God,
Glomgold.
Just whenever you think it won't be Glomgold, he's the true villain of the episode.
I don't want to think about it.
So yeah, like, I think the really good thing about this episode is that while it is kind of a simplistic and somewhat predictable plot, they go really interesting places with it, and the humor is really on point. Anyway, Doug, what are your final thoughts on the episode?
I definitely enjoyed this episode. It's such an improvement over what came before it. Like, you managed to do, so much in so little time, whereas, like, the 87 version, they didn't even need to make it a 5-parter. It just drags. But yeah, I mean, this was overall a great episode, great character piece. I don't know what else to say about it. It's so much fun, and it's a really good addition to the show.
Kat, what do you think?
Pretty much what Doug said. It is a good character piece for Fenton. It is a good way to show how he becomes a hero in this version of the show, how he comes into the limelight, and his self-discovery into becoming a true hero. And again, as Doug said, it improves upon what we saw in the original show. And that's another thing I want to discuss too. Another improvement on a recurring character is Fenton's mother. She was formerly known as Mama Crackshell, but in this version she's known as Officer Cabrera. And they pretty much can be two completely different characters. Because in the old version, Mama Crackshell was basically trailer trash. Like, she did nothing but sit on her ass all day and watch soap operas and pretty much put Fenton down at any point. Like, he wants to do more, he wants to, like, be a better person, and she's just, like, just tells him that he's worthless and he's better off just counting beans. And granted, she does help him at points during the five-parter, but for the most part, she's basically worthless. And he pretty much has to threaten her to, like, change her ways and to, like, stop being a mooch. In this version, it's the opposite scenario. So Officer Cabrera, like, she's like a legit career woman. She's a police officer, and she's the one that's like, well, she's still nagging Fenton, but in this case, she's telling him to get a job because he's an unpaid intern at Scrooge's Money Bin. So yeah, she's like a woman of action too. Like, you see her save Huey in this, which I thought was pretty cool. And again, she's one of the few people who actually knows Fenton's true identity. And in this version, she actually is supportive of it. Although she still kind of like tries to get him to like mooch off of like Scrooge's money.
It's like, I hear he's loaded.
And I do like that one thing that they kept consistent is that she loves soap operas. Like, they show her watching the Spanish soap opera. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but I got the gist of what was going on in this particular soap opera. It was this guy showing up, and he sees someone who claims to be his long-lost triplet. So he's like, which one? The guy rips off his mustache and says, both of them.
The name of the soap opera was like Patos something. And like they at one point they called like they said something like of the devil or like de dia. Like the soap opera itself was simply hilarious. I really love the humor in this episode and the evil twin gag and all this other stuff like
evil triplet.
Roderick, no.
Yeah, the only disappointing thing is that she wasn't really essential to the episode. Like, she was kind of just introduced, and that was it. I have a feeling though that since he's now that Fenton's the new protector of Duckburg, his mother's probably gonna be she's gonna probably be like to him what Commissioner Gordon is to Batman, like his person on the inside, so that way the police don't mess with him. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, why they made her a police officer. And it's actually kind of a nice reference, too, to her voice actress, Selena Leva, I think it is. Because she plays a detective in the various versions of Law & Order, and she also plays an inmate in Orange is the New Black. So, I thought it was a nice reference.
Oh, interesting. Overall, I think this was a really great episode. One thing that I really like is that at the end, Scrooge finally figures out that he is Gizmo Duck, and he fully funds it, without question. Even though Gyro kind of is still upset about it, he's just like, the project is fully funded, he's now fully paid, and so that really ties up that loose end, and it shows another reason why Scrooge is awesome. He sees someone trying to help people, and he fully funds that. But overall, like, this is just, it's a fun episode. It does a lot of really great things with the characters. It's a great character episode. Again, I liken it to Spider-Man Homecoming, where it's a great individual character piece, and it does a really great things with these characters. And while it's smaller than some of the previous episodes, it doesn't feel lesser. It definitely feels like it deserves to be among some of the greats that we've seen thus far. It's very much character focused more than plot focused, but it doesn't detract from itself as an episode by doing that, and I think that's a mark of good writing right there.
Oh yeah, like I said, this was definitely a fun episode. I'm glad that they're gonna keep bringing Gizmo back more in the future. And I know for a fact he is coming back in a future episode. As to which episode that is, I'm not quite sure yet.
Next time we convene, we're going to be talking about the other bin of Scrooge McDuck, which is a Magica-focused episode, and I am very excited for this. I have been ever since I kind of heard what was going on, because for the next few episodes, Magica is pretty much going to be the focus. I know in the final, two-parter that we're going to be getting soon, it's going to be a Magica-focused episode as well. So I'm very excited to see what they do with this. I'm intrigued. I'm also kind of excited that we're nearing kind of the end of the season. I mean, as much as I like this show, I do have to say, watching every single episode and trying to put it out in a weekly fashion is not the easiest thing to do, so I'll be glad for a little bit of a break. But with that said, we will reconvene next time, and we will discuss the other bin of Scrooge McDuck. With that being said, I am Zenith Rule.
I'm Kat Macberrie.
I'm Gizmoduck! I mean Doug Macberrie.
And we will see you guys next time. But just remember, guys, if you think that your armor is going haywire and there's no Karen present, all you gotta do is hook it up to your brain and everything is gonna be okay.
I don't think you want to be hooking anything up to my brain. That sounds like a very bad idea.
Tastes like burning.
Hey, this is Megami33. Thank you for watching Zenith Will Review. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. If you like what you see, check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/ZenithWillReview.